Hello, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and we are back for another episode of the Real Housewives of Atlanta. And this is season 16, this is episode 19. And by the way, last week's episode was episode 18. I think I said 17 in the video. But of course, in the description, everything was all correct. But anyway, yeah. So this is reunion part 2. And the second part was a lot better than the first part. I will say that. We got somewhere. We started cooking. Now, I am still slightly confused why there's 3 parts. Because I feel like that first part, looking at how so far what we have, that could have got condensed and it really could have been a 2-part reunion. Like, that's just clear. That's very, very clear to me. And then the other thing that I will say is if they were going to do the 3-part, they should at least invite Kenya back. Britt was supposed to be there, but that's a her thing. But if you would have made sure Kenya was there, there would have been a lot more going on. So to me, there's just a lot of questions that remain not answered. We're talking about Kenya, but yet you didn't give Kenya the opportunity to be there. You're talking to Cynthia about Kenya, but yet Kenya's not there. Like, just things like that where I'm just kind of like, okay, this is lacking. And even also with the Brit thing, I feel like the Brit thing would have hit differently, slightly, if Kenya was there also, to maybe address what she saw in Brit for her to feel that threatened where she did her actions. Because in a messed up way, although Kenya's actions were very, very wrong, the gist of Brit self-sabotaging, maybe possibly being a fraud, which was a lot of the things that Kenya accused her of, along with the things that she went way too far with. Kenya wasn't really wrong. It's just more or less like I just really wish, I know we've talked about this constantly, but it's just a case of like, why did you just continue? And I mean, continue to just, I feel like a lot of us are just shaking our head about why did she decide to go with the action she went with, which was basically, sorry, the light's bothering me. So I was like, let me put my glasses on. I just really, really wish she would have never done her actions. I know we've said this multiple times in the reviews. So I'm going to say it the last time. That was it. And then the other thing that was left to be desired. Let's get into the reunion. And you know how I do. We're going to talk about the different people in order. So first, let's get Cynthia out of the way since we kind of already talked about her. We'll just talk about it right now, right here. So really, Cynthia, when it came to a lot of her talks, was mainly about the Kenya situation, the Kenya and Brit situation. She addressed the talk about how she took up for Brit over Kenya, and that's not what it was. I feel like in that case, really Cynthia was just was basically not being a yes woman and holding Kenya accountable for what she did was wrong. And for whatever reason, maybe, and this is why I wish Kenya was there, because maybe there's another side to it. Because Kenya since then has talked to everyone else on this show except for Cynthia. That day where things went left, that was the last time she talked to Cynthia. So I don't know what that's about, but that's just one of those things we just don't have an answer to at this moment because of that. And then the other thing where Cynthia was kind of getting brought into was the talk about like how Phaedra basically was trying to console Brit and trying to teach her to, trying to help her out and be like, you're self-sabotaging like crazy, and trying to give her sound advice. And the rest of the girls were just like, yeah, Cynthia's been doing that this whole entire season too, like behind the scenes, just, giving us guidance on how to navigate, the show, basically. And, yeah. And so that was the other thing that kind of got brought up when it comes to Cynthia. But other than that, I'm trying to think, was there anything else additional with Cynthia? And side note, I know the first review or first episode last week, I didn't get into their fashions, but I want to get into their fashions a little bit real quick now. I was holding it off until I was actually on camera to talk more about it. Cynthia's hair looks like a mess. It looks like a complete mess. I don't understand why she thought it would be a good idea to put on a wig and just literally plop it on her head. No, like taking the, basically, you don't have to have all the baby hairs, but like it just literally looks like a cheap wig that she just put on her head. And so every time that they were showing Cynthia, I just was so distracted looking at that wig. I'm like, why would you have that kind of a wig? And it just kind of, for me, highlights how I felt about Cynthia this season. She's just kind of underwhelming. I know they keep trying to give her the credit of being the best friend of. I'm like, no. Clearly, y'all ladies don't watch Real Housewives of Miami. Those friend of are the friend of a friend ofs, okay? They're not even treated like friend ofs over in Miami. So, like, yeah, no. Cynthia... And honestly, if Kenya, like I said this before, and I'm going to say it again, if Kenya would have not done what she did and pulled that stunt, would Cynthia have been necessary for the show at all? These are just the thoughts that come in my head. And I'm not Team Twirl, so don't do me. But anyway, that's kind of my thoughts when it comes to Cynthia, this episode of the reunion. Really, the focus was really on... We'll talk about the focus and we'll go into it in order. So, like, the focus was mainly on the continuation of Phaedra and Angela. Angela in her own segment, basically. And we'll break it down as we go. Drew and Portia, because Portia threw Drew under the bus in relation to the Kenya situation. Again, the reason why I wish Kenya was at this reunion. And then Shamia continuing to basically be a lapdog. And then, this is the other thing. See, this is why I wanted to say this, because Cynthia did call out another thing, and I've been wanting people to call out for Shamia this whole entire time. And hopefully now, maybe she'll finally understand what the issue is that we as an audience also have with Shamia. So the other thing so basically Cynthia called it out. She's like, and that's your problem, Shamia. So Shamia is very overly passive aggressive. Like, to the point where it's like exhausting. She says things don't bother her, but yes, she brings it up over and over and over again because she doesn't actually deal with the issue ever. And then she does all this passive-aggressive, nice, nasty digs whenever she gets a chance, instead of just being transparent and honest from jump and just saying something bothers you so she can actually talk it out and actually resolve it. So this whole entire second part of the reunion, a lot of it was about past grievances from seasons ago. And it's just kind of like, it's really annoying and exhausting. And it's just kind of like, this is why we can't really side with you, Shamia, because you come off as really immature. And she does, and she did. And she really didn't do well in this. She hasn't been doing well when it comes to reunion. She did not earn that first chair. Really, to me, I feel like either Drew or Angela should have been first chair. Really Drew, because Drew carried the season for most of these girls. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, let's go on to talk about Phaedra. And then while we're talking about Phaedra, we're basically going to end up talking about Angela because they're kind of tied together. So in this segment, so at the very beginning, the continuation of the reunion, they pick up where they left off, where they're talking about Phaedra versus Angela. And side note, I saw the previews for the third part, and I cannot wait because Phaedra gets gagged by Charles Oakley himself. And I just can't wait. I cannot wait for it. But anyway, so they're going back and forth. And Angela's like, do you know Charles? And she's like, I know Charles. I've met him 10 years ago. Yada, yada. And Angela's like, you don't know him. Like, I've talked to my husband. He doesn't know you. And you're not in the rooms that we're in. And so they're having this argument back and forth about what rooms they're in and stuff like that. And then the other thing was, Angela the whole entire time just had this like folder of all of her receipts. And the second part of the receipts that she brought out, it actually did land, and I kind of found it funny because one of the viewer questions, which was kind of shady, we'll get back to the Phaedra and Angela part again, but like one of the viewer questions was like, you don't look like you're really 43. And boom, she busts out with her birth certificate and gave it to Andy, and yeah, she's 43. I mean, it just is what it is. She is that age. The nose job probably didn't do her any favors, and the way she dresses kind of mature, but she's still a beautiful girl, and like, not girl, she's a beautiful woman. But it cracks me up though, because it's like, oh my gosh, she's only 2 years older than me, but I feel like I look way more youthful than her. But I dress a little bit more hip and young. Like, the way I dress isn't the same. And that's no shade. I mean, it just is what it is. I'm sure if I dressed it a little bit more like refined, I could age myself if I really wanted to. We just ain't trying to do that over here. Or I guess I could wear stuff that's a little bit more age appropriate, but what is that? You know what I mean? It just is what it is. So then speaking of, Phaedra and Angela kind of went back and forth a little bit again because of Phaedra's not landing shade towards Angela, calling her the oldest, youngest person she's ever met. And and Angela's like, again, if I look like I'm 53, you're giving 63. Like, like, your old pictures, those old photos of you ain't it. Like, pre-enhancements. It's like, yep, call it. The other thing that came out though, when it came to the Angela portion / also Phaedra portion a little bit, was because they're still going back and forth with the whole June bug of it all. And I love, and this kind of piggyback off to Shamia a little bit, so it was a little bit of an alley-oop for Shamia, was she called her out. She's like, Portia, you're so quick to believe Phaedra and what she's saying, even though she did what she did to you years ago. And that somehow, I don't think it was necessarily the same time part of the reunion, but it did eventually come up where like Shamia was also part of that whole entire allegation that happened years ago. And that's another thing that Shamia was trying to say, she's good, but she's not good. And it's just kind of like, that's confusing to people, just in general. Like, why are you doing this nice, nasty thing, trying to be nice and friendly, but you really feel a way about something? If you feel a way, just say you feel a way. But then don't expect people to do the same thing in return. Like, to me, that's why I say that Shamia, I know we're talking about Angela, but that's why I say Shamia and Portia, they're two sides of the same coin, because they do that stupid stuff. Like, it's very immature. It's extremely immature. Like, they are... I feel like that's something you would do in high school when you don't have a voice or words. Like, use your words. Say what's bothering you. Say what's on your mind. So that kind of did come up again because of Angela kind of bringing it up earlier on when she was going back and forth with Phaedra. The other thing that came up was, Phaedra tried to call her brother, and her brother tried to say, I don't know these people, yada, yada, yada. But it was very rehearsed. Because why was your brother just available easily? And I was like, to me, it's actually... So... Are those Angela's reason of why Phaedra would do this? Kind of gives you pause of like, well, maybe Phaedra didn't do it because she was just like, she was trying to secure her spot. I fully believe her spot's secured because they wouldn't have brought her in the last minute to basically try to save the season, which she didn't do that really. Her spot was secured. So that didn't make sense. What really I think Angela was trying to say, and what she should have said, was you had no storyline. This was for your way to have a storyline. Because if it wasn't for this allegation, will we be talking about Phaedra at all on this show? No, we wouldn't. So to me, it almost makes me think it really was Phaedra who did this. And then the other thing was Phaedra never did own up to doing the things that she did the first time around. So do we want to believe that she wouldn't be capable of doing something like this again? I think in her twisted head, she's like, oh, their marriage is secured enough where I could just try to attack it. But like, I mean, what else will we be talking about when it comes to Phaedra? Like, let's be so for real. And also, too, the fact that your brother was just so available so quickly, it just gives it's very suspicious. And then also, you comforting her at the event and then turning around and then calling Portia with the tea, like you couldn't wait to go and call her. Like, all the things are pointing to me like, girl, Phaedra definitely did do this or has something to do with it. I don't care what she says. She can keep denying it all day. We know she's never going to tell the truth when it comes to these situations. But it is what it is. And then a little bit of it was they did ask Drew if she thinks that Phaedra did it. And she's like, I don't know. Like, and a lot of ladies don't really have an opinion on it other than Portia is like very definitive thinking she didn't do it. But it's just, it is what it is. Yeah, I think I'm beating this to the ground. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about other things that's Angela related that has nothing to do with this. So with Angela, we did get some clarity on quite a few things because she had her own segment. A lot of the questions were aimed towards her. One was, how is the houses happening? She took the loss. Basically, she had to take an L. Because they were all foreclosed and there was no saving it. So she basically was done with that. And also, too, we find out from her perspective, all that was going on the same time when her mom died. And rest in peace to her mom. Oh, and another random side note. Rest in peace to Malcolm Jamal. Yeah. Rest in peace to him. I found out about a couple hours ago that he passed away, and how he passed away is so sad. It makes me never want to get in waters like that. And I'm glad when I was in Puerto Rico, I barely went in the water. Like, just the idea of, and it's scary. That's just scary. Like, but yeah, rest in peace. Actually, rest in power. Let's say that. And same thing goes to Angela's mom. And we find out Angela also did the show for her mom. Her mom really wanted to be on the show as well, and basically raise awareness for like bipolar. And so it's really sad that, she died. Because we didn't really get that story from her. Because I mean, honestly, I perked up as soon as I heard that because I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to hear someone else's perspective on that. For those who don't know, who are new to the channel, my mom is also bipolar. And she's pretty much, for the most part, I will say, I feel like she's also on the other side of it as well. But it was a long battle. So maybe next season, I will hope we can maybe get more into that. I would love to hear more of Angela's perspective on that, because Angela and I kind of do have that in common. Of like, how did things go with her life with her mom having that? It changes things, For me, I am fortunate to have both my mom and dad, and my dad is a soldier, ride or die. To the point where this is partially why I'm single till this day, because they don't build men like my dad anymore. They don't. They really don't. But anyway, back to the Angela of it all. So that was kind of sad, and all the women kind of like gave their condolences to her, and even like Phaedra was like, "Look, when I gave you that when I gave you my condolences, I meant that. Regardless of what's going on the show, I meant that." And Angela's like, "I really hope you did mean that." And Phaedra was like, "Yes." And I actually do believe Phaedra really did mean that. I think she just is overly thirsty. I think there's two sides to Phaedra. I think she does have a real side to her, and I would hope that she has some type of sense of compassion and things of that nature. But at the same time, I think she also doesn't know where the bar of low is at. But a lot of these housewives don't have that, including Kenya, clearly. I mean, she didn't know where the bar was at until she did it, But anyway. So, what was I going to get at? Oh, so then the other thing that we got clarity from when it comes to Angela was we did talk about Angela and her daughter. So we find out that Angela was really only against the marriage because of how young her daughter was. Had nothing to do with anything else. She explains, like, my daughter's been in a relationship with her partner since high school. So I just really wish she could have just waited a couple more years and then get married. She's only 23. And also then Andy, of course, asked the additional question, like, so it didn't have anything to do with her being, a lesbian, basically. And she's like, oh, no. And then Angela's like, I've known she, was queer since, I've known it forever. Like, I've been knew that. We clocked that tea early, and it was a non-issue. She technically actually identifies as bisexual, but she really do like women more. It's clear to me from what I see, and I'm like, okay. So that was kind of nice to get that information. Now, the only thing to me that was missing, and hopefully maybe we can get this clarity in part 3, was I still don't understand why did her daughter live with her mom and her sister. I still want answers to that. I don't know if we're going to get those answers, but that's kind of one of the only things that kind of was still there that was like, okay, do we have an answer to that? And then the other thing that came up was the fan situation. And she's like, yeah, I'm perimenopausal. I was just like, you're about that age where that's going to be a thing. I mean, heck, I think I am too right now. I think I'm perimenopausal. Like, once you're 36, that's where it can start. It can start as early as 36. And if you're in your 40s, it's going to happen at some point in your 40s. Sometimes it's in your late 40s, sometimes in your mid 40s, sometimes in your early 40s. It just really depends. But anyway, that was the other thing about Angela. Moving on, let's talk about Drew Satora. Okay, so the Drew situation, when it comes to Drew, the main thing that was talked about really when it comes to Drew was Drew and Shamia's issues with each other, the back and forth. And Shamia, again, likes to play the victim and hide her hand thing, doing that nice, nasty stuff. And honestly, both Portia and, like, Drew, if they were on the one accord this season, they could have called this all out on Shamia this whole entire time. Because Shamia, girl, you were a disappointment this season. You started off strong and just kind of fizzled. And so far with this reunion, you're also not doing much when it comes to this reunion either for you to be in the first seed. Anyway, so they technically were talking about Shamia and her talent show, where she was showcasing her vocals and stuff like that. And it was called out, like, why did you take the opportunity constantly to make digs about Drew singing and acting abilities when you in turn are doing the same thing? Like, why do you need to, like, put someone down in order to build yourself up? And then she tried to basically lie and say, no, I never did that. And it's like, girl, we've heard all your radio interviews. You've been blasting Drew. Drew and her, she's been rent free going through your head this whole entire time. You've been constantly bringing up Drew. And so Drew's clapback was, you keep calling me a liar about the language thing. You know what? Let me help you out. And then she gave her a book of the 5 love languages. She's like, that's what the lying was about. So I didn't lie. I was telling truth. And then also too, it was kind of funny, kind of cute. So when this happened, because all the girls had props this episode, but then when that happened, Kelly she's like, no, I'll take that. You know, how much I owe you for the book though? Like, I want to read about this. I mean, I'm single. I need this book. I was like, so that was kind of cute and kind of funny. The other thing though, Shamia just kept trying to call it out about Drew lying. And it's like, Shamia, I don't know if you're new here. We, the people that been watching The Real Housewives of Atlanta, we know that Drew lies. We don't need you to call it out to us. We know that. But what you're missing is the lies that Drew be lying about. None of us care about for real. We're just like, oh, she lying, and we keep it pushing. It's not meant to take it seriously. You know how sometimes you might have like an aunt or uncle or someone that always just be telling a little bit of a white lie here and there, but it's like never of any consequence? That is Drew. Okay? None of her lies really do anything. Like, her lies are her trying to say that she's related to Michael Jordan. Who cares? It's not a lie that, like, no one believes it. It's a lie. It's fine, though. And Shamia is just will not let it go. And the whole entire time, I'm just thinking, so you've been doing all this with Drew because she called you a lapdog? Is that what all this is about? Even though she wasn't wrong, you are a lapdog? I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Because Drew has been in like Shamia's head rent free this whole season as well. So then the other thing that came up was she tried to like call her out about lying about one of her bags, saying it was some designer, and she's like, "Yeah, no, it's that's mine." And then Shamia brought props. She's like, "No, this was a cheaper version of it." And then jokingly, Portia's like, "Can I have it? I'll take it though. I'll take the fake one." And then they're like, "We're not in a good space for me to give you this." And then, so that was kind of like one of the main things with Drew, was that we never did get the answers of why Shamia was like giving like obsessed, because at the end of the day, Shamia, we knew Drew before we knew you. Especially for those who didn't watch the show before. I used to not watch the Housewives of Atlanta. So for those who are new to the channel, I didn't start watching any of the Housewives shows until the pandemic. I got bored and I started watching, catching up and watching all the things. And so that's how I even got into watching this. So I come from a slightly different perspective when it comes to most of my reviews, because I'm somewhat a new fan of the shows, because I wasn't watching it pre-pandemic because I was outside. I'm working on trying to be outside again, but I was really outside pre-pandemic. Yeah. I just moved to the city and I was having a time. Anyway, moving on. I hate when I do that. But anyway, moving on. So the next person, let's go ahead and talk about... So Kelly wasn't really that relevant in this reunion too much, other than talking about the Brit situation. But Kelly was just kind of there this time around. Honestly, if I was to redo the seating, I feel like Kelly should have been sitting at the end, along with Phaedra. And technically, she would have been. Yeah, no, I think she should have sat at the end. And I kind of think if it wasn't for Brit not showing up, Phaedra would have sat on the end of the other couch, and Brit would have been like the second seat of the other couch. I feel like that's really what would have happened, but we will never know. So, but yeah, I think Drew should have been first chair for sure. Shamia should be where Kelly's at, in my opinion, right now, like with the seating. But anyway, yeah, Kelly didn't really do much this time around for this part of the reunion, with other than a couple of the looks of like ooh ah whenever shading was happening. But yeah, she was just kind of there. Yeah, I feel like honestly, Cynthia was more present at this part of the reunion than Kelly was. But Kelly didn't really have much going on this. Like, we kind of got into the Kelly segment like last, the first part of the reunion. So, that's what it is. Sorry, a couple more things I forgot to add. So when it comes to the Kelly situation, there was one more thing that happened. The other thing that occurred was Kelly gets called out by Angela about trying to compare their marriages, her failing marriage to Angela's institution. And Kelly just kept trying to deny, but she did apologize. She's like, if I did that, I don't remember saying that, but if I did, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. I just she basically backpedaled. So that was one thing that got brought up. I forgot about that. And then the other thing that got brought up was during the Phaedra segment was about why she didn't show up for the oh my gosh, you can see I have so much I gotta clean these glasses, child. My cat hair is up in these glasses. The cat hair, because cat hair, if you have pets, no matter how hard you try, it's just gonna be there's just hair. It's always there. It's everywhere. Anyway, the other thing though that I forgot to mention that occurred during the reunion was also a viewer question about why Phaedra did she not show up for the Married to Medicine, but she showed up for this reunion. And Phaedra was like, well, I was originally a housewife, so I'm home. Basically, that was her answer. And really, it's like, okay, girl, whatever. She was in some heat and she wanted to deal with it. And she didn't have to because she knew she was back on the show. That's really what she should have said, because we all know that's why. But it was kind of a wasted question, because I feel like we knew the answer. And do we think Phaedra's going to give us a real answer? No, she doesn't tell the truth. But anyway, moving on. Okay, so next, let's talk about Shamia. So Shamia this time around, she definitely had more of her own segment, other than her constantly chiming in whenever, basically defending, trying to defend Portia constantly. Oh, Shamia, girl, let's get into it. About one of the other things that has something to do with Drew. She tried to compare how she rides for Portia the same way Drew did not ride as much for Angela. So you know how part of the issues is with the Portia and Shamia situation is that the ladies were calling out that she rides harder for Portia than Portia rides for her. Well, a similar thing could be said. We saw this season. We actually saw it. It was a very similar situation to Angela riding hard for Drew, but Drew wasn't doing it as much. There was parts of it where she wasn't doing as much, and they rolled the footage when that happened. And Angela was like, yeah, I did kind of feel a way. I didn't feel like you supported me the way you probably should have. And immediately, Drew took full ownership. She's like, girl, I am sorry if I didn't, do what I need to do for you, but you need to let me know these things so that I could do better. So I like that they kind of they deaded it immediately. And they handle it the way you should if you two are really friends in real life. Not the way Portia and Shamia handles things. Like they do this passive aggressive and don't talk it out type thing. It's very immature. But anyway, Shamia tries to then pipe up and say, so how's that different? And it's like, are you dumb? Shamia, are you dumb? And I don't even know why I'm even asking the question, because I'm starting to feel like she is. She's kind of dense. There's a difference because Angela and Drew are newly friends. So the expectations are not going to be the same. Okay? They're newly friends. They just met 2 years ago for the show. They're working on building a friendship outside the show. You and Portia are childhood friends. So these talks shouldn't even be in the conversation anymore for how long y'all known each other. So the comparison is not even the same. And I've noticed whenever it comes to Shamea and her arguments, she compares things that the continents are never meeting. And I'm just like, girl, are you okay? I always just want to ask, are you okay? Anyway, that was one thing that kind of grind my gear that I had to talk about real quick. But the other thing that happened with Shamea this episode was we did get into the things when we were talking about her daughter, Shiloh. Shiloh is doing better health-wise. And then we kind of got into Britt. So let's talk about Britt real quick. We got into a situation with Britt where she was like, yeah, no, when Britt brought up my daughter, that was a new low. That was not okay. And it was unforgivable, as it should be. And Shamea did tear up, as she should. And that is one thing about Shamea that is redeeming for me, is her love for her family, wanting to expand her family. It's a little crazy how badly she wants to do it, but if you like it, I love it. I understand. I mean, I don't get it, but if you like it, I love it. I guess that's what I'm getting at. But I do commend her for her handling the hardships the best she can, and still wanting to move forward to expand the family, even though she has the hardships. That is commendable. Speaking of, though, we do talk also about how her second surrogate, the one we saw on TV, didn't work, and we already knew that. And so now she has one more surrogate that they're trying to work with, and she only has one more thing to be able to insert. And if that doesn't work, it's done. They can't do anything about it. It just is what it is after that. So that's kind of what's going on when it comes to family expansion situation. And then the rest of this episode, for the most part, was basically about Shamea versus Portia. And then the other thing was too, there was a break, a lunch break, and then this is where we saw during the lunch break we saw some of the men of the show showing up. I want to say husbands because there's only one husband that was there, but the men of the Housewives were there. So Dennis showed up. We saw Ralph. No one wants him on the show, but he always is just there. It's like, oh my god. And then Charles and Angela had a little cute interaction where they're just like, I've seen you. I was like, okay, I'm starting to see. Okay. Charles is loosening up. He's loosening up. So we did see a little bit of that during the break. And then the other thing that came up, because this is also related to the Shamea situation a little bit, was the alliance. The allegiance, alliance, whatever you want to call it, that got brought up again. And it was Shamea and Kelly talking to Angela about it. And Angela was just like, what do you want me to do? And she's like, well, and so she basically clarified further. The reason why you weren't part of the alliance is we didn't know you yet. We really didn't know you. So we already knew each other. So we decided we're going to band together. But Shamea was trying to basically plead her case about how Portia would have been part of this alliance, even though she's trying to say she wasn't. And okay, I think two things can be true. I think Portia was aware of the alliance, but I don't think she was actually in it. I think once she figured out that there was an alliance, they switched things up to protect her. But I don't think she was actually in the alliance. So it's basically some semantics going on. Because I think originally, I don't think there even was a Portia takedown call. I don't think that was even a thing. I think that's Portia putting sauce on things. But I think once Portia was aware of the alliance, she in turn was protected because she knew about it and she didn't expose it. I personally think that's what happened. I don't know that for a fact, but that's my theory. So Shamea could say that she was part of the alliance, but I don't think Portia really was part of the alliance. I think it's because she knew about it, she's saying that. Because between Portia and Shamea, they both have a little weird, interesting relationship with the truth. They both be lying. So I need to interpret both of their truths to try to get to the truth, if that makes sense. Because I don't trust neither of them. Because they both have been caught in lies the whole season and these 2 parts of reunion. But then yet Shamea has the audacity to be calling someone else a liar when, girl, you be lying too, and you get caught in them constantly. But that lack of awareness, that's just what is with her. But let's move on and talk about Portia. And by talking about Portia, we're talking about Shamea still, because that was really the rest of the reunion, was them two going back and forth and nothing being resolved. Okay, so then this last part, for the rest of the reunion, basically, it was Portia and Shamea going back and forth about their friendship. So it started with Andy asking where they are at with their friendship, and both of them were just being pouty and very passive aggressive. It was like, God damn, you guys are both just very immature for your ages. Because both of them are just in the side like, hold on. Action. So, and this is Andy. So, where are you guys at when it comes to your friendship, Shamea and Portia? Portia. Shamea. And sing. And sing. So that's literally what they had going on. I'm just like, this is so juvenile. So after that, they start going back and forth when it comes to their friendship. And Shamea doesn't take accountability to save her day. To save the day. And funny thing is, Drew called out earlier on that she doesn't take accountability. Like, Shamea always just be thinking she's right when she ain't. Like, it just is what it is. So, but Portia, neither of them are good friends. I'm sorry, but neither of them are good friends to each other. They're both very immature. Emotionally. They're both very emotionally immature. I wouldn't want either of them as a friend. Respectfully, I wouldn't want either of them as a friend. Like, Shamea is a yes woman. No one, like, if you have a self-esteem about you, why would you want a friend as a yes person? They will never call you out when you're doing wrong. Ever. And they will always play in your face saying everything's fine, and then yet they're talking behind your back about how everything is not fine. And the thing is, what's wild about it is, so Portia's beef with Shamea, we find out, is literally Shamea's behavior of how, and really you can parallel it. Shamea's behavior and how she's been acting towards Drew, she's been doing the same thing with Portia. Now, did Portia start some of this behavior? Possibly. Is Portia innocent in this matter? Absolutely not. Because I think 2 things can be true. Portia is sick of the passive aggressiveness of what Shamea does. She does this, everything's going to be okay, but then really she's like talking stuff. And like, but the thing is though, I feel like a lot of people also may just be like, you know what, it's an even break, or they might even take Shamea's side. It's because Portia does the exact same thing. 2 sides of the same coin. Also, too, we brought up the wedding again. So we're talking about the wedding situation. And that was a whole bunch of semantics. Because Portia's like, I went to your ceremony in Atlanta. And Shamea's like, that wasn't a wedding. And they just keep going back and forth to the point where, like, Andy was getting annoyed with them both and told them to shut up and, like, one at a time talk type thing. and then the Kenya, like her back to with going back to the other wedding, the African wedding. That got brought up again, and then Shamia did call Portia out. She's like, "You got caught." Like, so which one's the truth? Was it because we weren't talking, or is it because you couldn't do it? Because Portia, she lies so much. She went back to what she originally said the first time about why she didn't go. She forgot that she said on the show that's because they weren't talking, and Shamia called it out. And it's like, see, the problem is you two are both individuals that do this kind of thing, so neither of you can tell each other where you started off. Where did the problem start? You can't even tell each other that, because neither of you know, because you do this passive aggressive thing. So they're going back and forth about that. They also go back and forth about her being a good friend versus her not being a good friend. And then somehow the mama situation comes up at the very end of the reunion, where Shamia was like, "Yeah, you called out my mom. Said that my mom did all these bad things to your mom, and that's not true." And Portia's like, "Oh, yes, it is true." And so that's where the reunion ended in that cliffhanger. Are we going to get to find out what Miss Diana and Miss Morton's what they did, what happened? I ain't gonna hold you. That might save the reunion for me if we get to that, because I've been curious since it got brought up. Ever since Portia brought that up on social media, now I want to know what happened. I've been wanting to know ever since now. Like, oh, we're bringing the mamas into this. Okay. Yeah, so I guess the other thing is, when it comes to the Shamia and Portia situation, I feel like some of the ladies actually, ironically, are taking Portia's side a little bit. Because, and also too, it turns out that Britt probably was telling the truth about all the things that Shamia was saying about Portia. And I already thought that. I kind of figured that was the truth, because it's the second time that this has happened. And Shamia is very passive aggressive. Extremely passive aggressive. And she does these things where she's doing this. So we've even seen it with how she treats Drew on the show. She's doing all these things, saying things are cool, things are okay with Drew. I support Drew. I do all this stuff, this, that, and this. But then yet you blast her the first chance you get when you go on your press tour. And then you're blasting Portia every chance you get on the press tour. But yet you keep claiming you want a friendship. But you keep putting the business out there constantly about your said friendship. So it comes off like, okay, Portia's wrong in this situation, because, yeah, let's be clear. Portia's not a good friend. She just isn't. But also, too, it's giving you're also not a good friend either. And I'm just saying, as if it was me, if I had a friend who was constantly doing the same thing Shamia was doing, we would never be friends. Ever. Ever. It wouldn't even take me that long to realize we're not going to be friends. Because if I find out you're talking about me and gets back to me, it's done. Like, why are we talking about me like that? And I mean, especially if you're talking about me behind my back, but you don't have the balls to say it to my face. Wherever you say it to the people out in these streets, and you say it to me first. See, and that's kind of how I feel about that. But anyway, that's kind of though where the reunion ended. The part 2 was better than part 1 easily. Like, there was a lot more meat and potatoes to work with when it came to part 2. I am curious about what they're gonna do with part 3, other than the men's showing up. Also too, I hope the mom thing, we figured that out, because again, I'm curious. I want to know. Don't you? But anyway, yeah, that concludes my review. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you get anything out of the content. And yes, I'm happy to be back on the camera. Side note, I told you I was in between hairstyles. How do you like? Yeah, this has been my vibe all year. So y'all saw, I did it originally, had my hair like this back in like February, and then did another iteration of it for the Renaissance. And now we're doing this to kind of end the I guess we're doing this for like July, August. I wanted to go red again. It's been a minute since I've been red. I was like, let me be a redhead again. I kind of missed that. So that's the aesthetics that we're given right now. And it's also, the 30 inches. I like to have me a nice 30-inch hair. I like it where it's almost on my butt, but not quite on my butt. But it kind of is because I have a high butt because I'm tall. It's just what it is. But anyway, yeah, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you get anything out of the content. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner. I will see you next time. Bye.